of course, I'm Jeff Brodsky, and Robert is with us as well. A family-centered approach to internet safety. We're doing this because we have our own children and grandchildren. All of my children are grown. I have 7 grandchildren. Robert, how many grandchildren do you have?
6 with 1 on the way.
Yeah, you're going to beat me. You have so many more to come. I'm done. But I like to start with the 2 beauties that you see there. That's Emma and Leah. Emma and Leah are 2 of my grandchildren. And the reason I like to have them on my first slide is as a reminder to me that children the same age and even younger than my own grandchildren are being abused in such an evil, heinous, horrific way. And I don't need to have their photo in front of me as a reminder, but any opportunity I have to look at their sweet faces, I take. So the reason we're doing this is because we want to know, what do your children do when they're online? And when I say online, it's not necessarily on a computer like we're on right now. It could be on a computer. It could be on a cell phone. It could be on an iPad or on a workbook that they, like my grandchildren, they're both in middle school now. And both of them, their schools gave them iPads to use to do their schoolwork. And we think that because it's from the school that they're protected from predators. Well, I can assure you that predators know how to bypass even the safety nets that are on those computers. So this is one of the reasons that we decided that we needed to do this webinar to educate you on the tools that are available not only for you, but tools that the predators use to bypass the safety nets to get to your children. I was going to have other slides for my part and show all the statistics of the tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of predators that are online. But I made the decision that I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to give all the statistics, because what we're planning on doing is having pages available on our website. Those of you that know that you can go to joy.org, and on joy.org, we're going to have on our parenting pages other tools available, not only for you, but for your child, tools that you can use to even show your child. I'd like to give you an example of one. This is just a short video clip that I found, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic, an opportunity that you can have, and we will have this video on our website that you can use to not only to show your child, but to enter into a conversation with your child, to open up that conversation about the dangers of the internet. So I'm going to show a quick video, and here it goes.
You probably get lots of messages every day, but what if you got one like this? What would you do? Would you send a picture? No? Cool. That's an easy way to protect yourself. But what if you'd chosen differently? What if you send a picture? They'd never share it with anyone else, right? Do you want the picture shared with others? Sorry, you no longer have a choice. It's out of your hands now, because sometimes people we trust break that trust. Maybe the person you sent the picture to shows it to some friends. Maybe they send it to a couple friends, who send it to a couple more friends, you get the idea. It spreads, and you never know who might see it. Your little brother? Your mom? Other people at school?
Dude, seriously?
I would never.
Even strangers could get a hold of your picture. You never really know where that picture will end up.
Stop, don't look at it.
How long it will be out there,
Ew,
or what the consequences will be. Don't let others decide what happens to your image. Think before you share. Learn more at netsmarts.org. And hey, if your image is already out there, know that it's not your fault. For information about removing sexual pictures and videos from the internet, visit missingkids.org/gethelpnow.
Well, I hope that short clip opened up your eyes a little to just one thing that is happening on the internet, not just on the internet, but especially with this tool right here. This could be used in a powerful way for good or for evil. So the way to stop that evil is by doing exactly what we're doing here, being made aware of what is happening and how the enemy will use some of these tools to prey on your children. And I don't mean prey, P-R-A-Y, I mean prey, P-R-E-Y. So I want to give Robert as much time as possible to not only do the presentation that he has, but also to open it up for questions at the end of his presentation. So I'm going to get back into sharing my screen right now. Robert, it's all yours. Just tell me when you need me to switch.
All right, and we'll go ahead and click to the next screen, Dr. Jeff. Again, welcome everyone to the webinar, and just want to come to each of you as a parent and as a grandparent. Have 4 children, have 6 grandchildren, and Dr. Jeff and I have been working together the past 3 years, literally traveling to different parts of the world. So we're engaged in the thick and have experienced through the years. My previous experience before coming on board with Joy International, doing everything that we possibly can and various types of other kinds of activities and operations to physically rescue victims from sex trafficking. But this is also a way to educate our families on the reality of gateway opportunities that may open the door for individuals that we know to be seduced, if you will, into a trafficking world and not even know they're being introduced or seduced into that underbelly. And so my approach with today's webinar is during the COVID pandemic, we as a team at Joy International have not been sitting idle. We have not allowed any grass to grow under our feet. We're still very deep into the trenches, and me as well, working with different police and still doing different types of activities and operations that keep us out and in tune with the pulse as to the underbelly that exists, this arena of sex trafficking and predators and molesters and pedophiles. And so as we have researched during this pandemic time, not just here in the US, but also on a global scale, some of our research has uncovered several dynamic things that we need to be aware of. Number one is that many of our children and grandchildren, they are now at home. They have not been going to school. They've not been exposed to friends as they were or to activities. So a lot of these children who were in situations at home, they were in some domestic violence situations. Many of these children have been abused, and school would be an outlet. School would be a way to temporarily escape those dynamics they were experiencing at home. Well, if you're locked up now because of a pandemic, those outlets have been closed, right? So where there was a short reprieve, even though they would be coming back home to some of those dysfunctions, at least that time away was a reprieve. Now, many of those children being at home, and in some cases, maybe their parents or guardian have been going to work, or maybe on a short-term kind of basis, how the COVID may have impacted that family unit and mom and dad working. Maybe there's still somewhat of a little reprieve. Maybe those children are home, but if they're home by themselves, what did you do when you were home by yourself as a teenager? I'm sure each of us could relate some stories of what boredom may fire us to do. And so these children in boredom or loneliness may be looking for an opportunity to escape. Well, predators are always on the lookout for kids who are trying to find a way of escape, trying to connect or to receive some type of trusted friend, because that's how predators will often lure vulnerable children into some of the circles we're going to be talking about. So our research has indicated that as children are at home and even parents are at home, there have been an increase in a couple of things. Number one, there's been an increase in the number of traffic pornography sites have been receiving. An example would be Pornhub. It's the world's largest porn site industry in the world. And during the height of the COVID pandemic, there were certain countries that had a 57% increase in traffic to Pornhub. Now, 2019, Pornhub had 42 billion visits to their site. And you can imagine a 57% increase, what that number would be. Here on the US, an average increase of about 10%. So that's still a lot of activity because people have been locked home. Children, teens have been gaining access to those same sites. And we need to just take a step back as a parent and as a grandparent and realize that many times our kids and grandchildren don't necessarily intentionally end up on those sites, but there could be some gateway doorways, if you will, that kind of one step after another introduces them to those sites. And then once those images get into the mind, it can have a devastating impact. And it can, for some, even drive that curiosity even further. Second indicator that we have noticed through our research is that, as I alluded to initially, is the number of children who were able to go to school and to communicate and to be with their friends and so forth, who were subjected to abuse, sexual abuse and so forth, not having that opportunity. So now these children are locked in home, and the domestic violence and the sexual abuse has exponentially grown for these children. Well, out of that kind of dysfunction, a child could be looking for some type of reprieve, some type of help. And so online activity, again, as Dr. Jeff said, it could be the phone, it could be an iPad, it could be a PC, any kind of technology that's going to open the door for someone to get online or through various apps. Predators are on those avenues. So our goal with the webinar is to make you aware. My role is to kind of create this umbrella for the family and to bring the whole family into this learning experience, that it's not just mom and dad and grandparents and extended family and friends, but we want to kind of coach you and to share with you how to incorporate the whole family into a strategic plan to better safeguard your children, your grandchildren, safeguard your home, and to put safety and security measures in place that are going to, again, better safeguard your family. Okay, Doc, next slide. So 3 things that I want to share that can kind of create this umbrella is we need the whole family unit to understand that we live in a world to where dangers do exist, unintentional dangers and intentional dangers. We encourage families to teach their children to be aware of their surroundings, their environment, the people that are around them. And the best analogy that I could give of this situational awareness, how many of us as parents, or even when we were children, were told, don't let a stranger come into the house. Someone knocks on the door and you don't know who they are, don't let them come in. And we post no trespassing signs on property and so forth. So we want to minimize those intruders coming into our homes, right? But how many times do we invite strangers into our home through technology? How many times do our children invite strangers into their lives through technology? Some of that could be intentional because they don't know that possibly who they're inviting into their home, into their life through technology. On the other side of that technology is someone with criminal intent, malicious intent, and looking for an opportunity to gain access into our children's lives. Better yet, to pull those children out of the safety net of our homes. And I could share so many statistics and stories where that has been the case, where teenagers, and the average age for teenagers getting engaged with predators is between 12 to 17. That seems to be the age group. The driving age group is at 15 to 17. And so some of these teens who have been opening the door through technology for a stranger to come into their lives, and those strangers trying to get them out of the home, and these teens meet with these strangers, and in many cases, those children are never to be seen again. And that's what we don't want to happen. And so we're trying to be sensitive and intelligent to have a vetting process in place when it comes to internet safety and security. We're not saying don't let your child be on the internet, but there are ways that we can make it safer. So helping our family understand that we live in dangerous times and to create this worldview that there are dangers all around us. This just happens to be a topic that falls up underneath that umbrella. But there's a bigger picture. There are individuals out there with malicious intent. So how can we develop safety and security measures to better safeguard our family, our home? Safety measures have more to do with non-intentional situations that could lead us to an element of danger, okay? Security measures is putting things in place that better protect us from people who have malicious intent. We need both of those concepts operating simultaneously, but they are different. Safety measures for our family would include educating about the potential online dangers that exist. So we're educating about that. The security measure is what you're going to put in place to protect your child from that, okay? We need both of those and operating simultaneously so that it can help when it comes to putting together that strategic plan. We live in a dangerous world and we want to protect our family. Intruders are trying to come into our homes And one of the ways they do that is through technology. Technology is not bad, but we want to better train and teach and educate our families, especially our children, what we as a family are putting in place so that we can vet that technology or individuals that are being communicated with, and to ensure and to better protect, to make sure those are not intruders trying to gain something more than what they're pretending to present. Okay, next slide. So we need to have a, if you will, a profile of a predator. How do predators operate? What are they looking for? Predators are looking for children and teens, and a gateway of communicating with them is through social media. It's through networking. And this networking isn't necessarily, that I'm referring to, necessarily technology. Networking where friends now, and we see this trend in high schools in particular, there's a networking group of people, and they have found it thrilling to connect with strangers. And so they will challenge their friends. And we're seeing this in elementary school and middle school. This isn't just high school. We're seeing this challenge, this networking of where a child may, through technology, have been exposed to someone. And that someone may have shown that child an inappropriate picture. And now this child that's had that experience has been challenged by the predator, if you will, on the other side of that technology, to try to get other people to be a part of that experience. And so this networking challenge is, the initial is technology, but it's going beyond that, trying to throw a net and bring even more children into that experience. Predators are looking to have an avenue through various chat rooms, and these chat rooms are through apps, through PCs, also gaming systems. And one of the things that we have to realize, and maybe even take into an account, are we as parents driving our children unintentionally, but driving our children, our grandchildren, to seek out a stranger? And let me just talk about that for a second. If our homes are not in order, if there are some dysfunctions, if our children are being verbally and emotionally abused, that can create a very dynamic wedge inside the home, right? And those children who are hurt will oftentimes, out of that hurt, look for someone that can give them what they're not getting at home. And sometimes as parents, we can close doors of communication where we don't talk to our children, we don't communicate with our children. We love them, we provide for them, may not be doing anything mean or harsh or anything of that nature, but we just close ourselves off from our children. We get locked up into our own world, own stresses of life, and that door becomes shut, and now we're not as sensitive to our children. And many times those dynamics can drive our children. I'm not saying intentionally drive them away from us, but it can drive them into the arms of harm and danger. And that's where, when we create a threat assessment for our families and we sit down, we take an honest look at our own family unit and dynamic and assume responsibility. As a dad, yeah, I've been inundated with work. Sorry, I haven't been communicating. Sorry, I haven't given as much time that I should have. Those are real accountability measures that families need, so that we don't become a participant in driving our children in those directions. Does that make sense, guys? And um, the trafficker or the predator, they're behind that various technologies, looking for those kinds of vulnerable situations. Well, once a predator connects with someone online, and we'll just use that term, the next step is a grooming process. This predator wants to gain the victim's trust. An example would be a victim would share some personal information, and the predator and the victim doesn't realize they're talking to a predator, and that predator will become whatever he needs to be, whatever that victim is looking for. The predator becomes a great pretender, and that's this seduction process and this grooming process all working together. That predator is luring them in and playing with their emotions and begin to manipulate their emotions. And so this grooming can start off very low key. And the longer that victim shares information, the deeper they get caught into this web of the predator. And just like the picture indicates, that hand coming out, don't trust anyone but me. I am your only true friend. That's what a predator does. They try to disconnect any real relationship of trust and tear that wall down that child has with people that really love that child, and want that child to see as the predator, they are the only one that really cares for them and has the best solution for what they're going through. And this grooming process, it can take weeks, it can take months. And that trust becomes built over time. All right, Doc, next slide. What predators will use if they sense a victim is not going to participate as deeply as they want that victim to participate. Then they begin to use manipulation and fear tactics. And one big component of the fear tactics is, especially if that child, that teen, has shared private information or a private picture. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a nude picture, but an inappropriate kind of picture. What the predator will do is blackmail. They'll begin to tell the victim, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to post this picture on your Facebook page. I'm going to share this with your friends. I'm going to send it to your mom and dad so they'll know what you've been doing. So this fear tactic is a way to manipulate and to draw that victim even deeper into this web. Predators are looking for the vulnerable, bottom line. And unfortunately, technology can be a way that these predators gain access to our children. Next page. This is a video, Confession of a Predator. And before we watch it, I spent 8 years working in a particular prison system, specifically working with rapists and murderers and hardened criminals of different capacities. And this video really captures the essence of it's a real predator. But what I want you to see is, if you kind of pull away from what this predator is sharing, seems very safe. You're going to just kind of see the demeanor. A monster doesn't always look like a monster, and that's the great disguise, right? The predator never wants to be seen for who they really are. And when you see the demeanor of this predator, you can begin to understand why and how a child may feel safe. Now, it makes me angry, to be honest. How about you, Dr. Jeff? It just infuriates us of what we've seen and the individuals that we work with. And Dr. Jeff and I both agree. We get asked all the time, what's the hardest thing that you see or deal with? It's the ones we couldn't rescue, or the ones we had an opportunity to rescue and things were not in place for us to do so. That's hard to live with. And then there's the human side of us. Honestly, if we could get our hands on these guys, because we're protectors, and we don't want families to struggle and to hurt. So this picture, what I want you to see, guys, is how likable he presents himself, and that will better help you understand that's how predators present themselves to their victims. Okay. You're muted.
You're never going to know, you never know what a predator is going to look like. Robert, I know you'll agree with that. You just never know. A predator could be a 14-year-old teenager. It could be an 80-year-old man, woman. It could be a minister. It could be a judge, a lawyer. It could be a cop even. You never know. There's no certain look to what a predator looks like. But they sound the same. They don't look the same, but their tactics are almost always the same. Robert, I think you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, let's show this video.
I was convicted of possession of child pornography and forcible sodomy and was given a sentence of 45 years. I don't think there's anything that could have been done to stop me from getting online.
Jeff, I think you accidentally muted the video.
Initially, it was heterosexual, mild pornography. There's definitely convicted of possession of child pornography and forcible sodomy and was given a sentence of 45 years. I don't think there's anything that could have been done to stop me from getting online. There's definitely research to indicate that child pornography fuels the desire and fuels the fire in someone who is interested sexually in children to go ahead and act on that. I didn't, use any pornography for myself until I got the internet. Initially, it was heterosexual, mild pornography, and then there comes a point where that is just not, doesn't satisfy anymore. So I started to look at child pornography. In a 3-hour period of time, if I spent online, I would probably talk to 25 children. It would be my goal to find out what type of person it is that they were looking to speak to. So if it was a 13 or 14-year-old boy who was interested in speaking to a 13 or 14-year-old female, then I would be that female. There are millions of pictures online that you can download and send as far as this is who I am. And certainly a majority of the time that I spoke to children, they would have issues that they would share with me that were personal issues. I absolutely believe that the kids who I talked to, especially the ones that I spoke to most frequently, the ones that I interacted with, saw me as a friend. Certain that they trusted me, certain that they liked me.
In the online world, predators use the same tactic, and it's what we call grooming, or law enforcement calls grooming. They build a relationship, they try to understand what they care about, they give them compliments, sometimes they'll even send presents or say nice things, and eventually a teen will start having feelings for a predator. And it's at that point where the danger begins.
The grooming behavior that we have seen can take months, or it can take a very short amount of time, depending on the offender. And little by little, the conversation will turn off into a very sexual nature, and they'll start to talk to the child about what their interests are, and they'll try to find out what the child's interests are. And often they will get the child to say things that the child couldn't even imagine talking about. And sometimes children will talk about things that they don't even know what they mean because they're clearly very adult sexual conversations.
They are inundated with sexual images and sexual conversation that allow them to very freely participate in those types of conversations and activities. Typically, I would just start by asking for a regular picture, and then if it got to that level, I would eventually ask for a picture of more of a sexual nature.
Grooming is really easy to understand once you give thought to it. Everybody wants to feel love. And these people online are willing to make you feel that way. And it never occurs to you that the person that you're talking to may be a monster. And they do it in the most subtle ways. You get in a fight with a friend. Your friend called you that? Oh my gosh, why would your friend ever call you that? That's not a friend. I'm your real friend. I would never say anything like that. And they pull you away from everything around you, all your friends and your family and your teachers. And as you're getting pulled away, you're getting closer to him.
One of the devices that these predators use in the interactions with kids is sending them explicit photos of themselves. What they're trying to do is sort of deaden the nerve endings. They're trying to beat down the resistance. It's part of the grooming process to normalize what they're trying to do, and it's pretty insidious.
Next slide. We've put together this next slide, and we're not going to go through all of these. In fact, encourage those of you that are watching, which would be a part of the strategy of your family research, is to search apps that predators use. These are a number of highlighted apps working with the police. There's actually about 19 top apps that predators use. None of these apps are specifically engineered for a predator to use, but a predator can use any one of these apps, but are more prone to others. For example, Grindr that you see. This is an app that is targeted towards the gay male community. Well, our research and our work when I was even working in the prison system, individuals who are struggling with their sexual identity are often afraid to talk about any of that with their family at home, okay? Or to talk with friends that are close to them. And ironically, they will actually reach out to a stranger to talk about this struggle that they're having. Well, this is an app that predators will use trying to connect with individuals who are having some struggle with their sexual identity. That's just an example. As you investigate each one of these apps, you'll learn what they were designed for, how they are encrypted. Some of those are not encrypted. And which ones are more favorable by predators, for example, Instagram and Snapchat. Snapchat is you can take a picture, and when it's viewed, then it goes away, unless they take and use another app to store that picture, such as in a secret calculator vault. Well, Secret Calculator Vault have other names. This is an app that you can download on your phone. It looks like a calculator, but behind it is a vault where you can store passwords and private pictures and so forth. So it's a way that oftentimes children and adults alike will have inappropriate material, and they will save it into that secret app. And But as you research through these, it better educates you which ones that you would better monitor for your own children, and which ones you would decide as a parent that you're not going to allow your child to participate in. And that's why the family research portion of it's so important, because when you start to research it and you're there with your child, of course, you want to make everything appropriate and the level and the age of your child when you're doing the research. But you don't want to just tell your child, no, you can't use that app. That's a good way to kind of push them away. Why not incorporate them and educate them? This is why we don't want you to use that app. Every parent and grandparent has a different style naturally for how they're going to raise their family. But this is a good approach. I'm not saying it's the best approach, but it is a good approach when we get to the family research. And I'll talk more about that. But again, these apps, at least being aware of these apps. And these apps can be downloaded onto the phone, iPad, PC, any kind of technology that will receive an app. That app can be stored on that device. All right, next. So how can we better protect our children and our teens? Well, a big part of the process is what we call family talk. Family talk is very, very important. What's the number one key for a success of a relationship? Communication. And this is a way to open communication within the household and to value what our kids have to say. Now, as a father of 4, I could tell you of a lot of imperfect parenting skills not to use. And I've learned a few things. And one of those things is to value my children, what they have to say, what they think, what they're going through, not to belittle them, not to, if something bothers them, I need to take to heart and help them walk through that process. Many times our children may have experienced something with a stranger online. But if that door of communication is not open, or they don't feel like they can trust us as a parent, that we're going to maybe be harsh and judge or discipline them for something even they didn't necessarily do. It could have been by an accident and they were exposed to something. And we want our children to feel they can trust us, right? We want them to feel like home is a safe and secure place. So the family talk. And we need to discuss the need to be aware of certain things in society, those potential dangers that do exist, and how to create a plan to better prepare our families from those potential harms. So that's the initial, is just family talk, just sitting down. So for example, if I were to put this into practice, and I do this with my own family. My oldest son is almost 30. My youngest is 18. We still have family talk. On Sundays, the whole family still gets together, 19 of us, for family lunch. Well, it's been a while since we've had family lunch. But that's a time where, as a family, we sit down and we discuss topics and things that are taking place around the world. And as a family unit, all 19 of us on the same page. For example, if my oldest son sets things in place, we don't want our youngest son watching this, that, or the other. That is shared information, so that when the grandchildren come over and they say, hey, Dad said it's okay that I could use this app. Well, if I feel questioned in that, guess who I'm calling? I'm calling my son. Hey, is it okay? I don't think this is a good idea. You understand what I'm saying? So the family talk is that beginning point. And so we're we're sharing with our family the potential umbrella of dangers that exist, but we're bringing the children into that conversation, not just on online safety, but into the whole umbrella of potential threats that exist. Now, when it comes to online activities, we want to do some family research. And this family research as a family is including the children and the teens, and we're all researching together. Parent, guardian is guiding this research, and it's not blind research. It doesn't have to be anything too deep, and I'm going to give you some suggestions to research as a family. But it's that initial process that the family is sitting down and working with the children and bringing this research to the surface. And now we're discussing why this could potentially be dangerous. And if it is, how can we put safety and security measures in place that are better going to protect us as a family? And a good way to do that, for example, if we're researching apps that could be potentially harmful and our children are a part of that process, we just ask, after we research, and then we ask them, what do you think about that? How do you think someone with bad intentions, I don't know if you'll use the word predator depending upon the age of your child, but you would use language, how can we as a family better protect ourselves from someone who has bad intentions? That's just an example, bringing those children into that conversation. So the family research is going to look something like this, which is on the next slide. So the research considerations, and that's all this is. As a family, make it as broad as you want it to be, but this is a good starting point. A family would sit down and research together what are the potential dangers of online activity. And it's that broad. And depending upon the age of the child, the parent would type everything in and just kind of navigate them through that. Or if you've got teens, but you're all right there together. Okay. And so you're all bringing, well, hey, this is what I found. This is what I saw. Oh, this is interesting. I can guarantee you when our children are a part of that process, we're trying to help them take ownership of the safety and security of our own home, because it never just affects our child. If our children are being drawn to a predator, that has a direct impact on the whole family, because what is that predator trying to do? Pull our children away from the family unit. It has a direct impact on us. So we, as much as we can, get our children to take ownership, and that we value from their perspective what research is showing them. Us not trying to interpret how they are viewing the research. We guide them through that. Ultimately, as parents and guardians, we put the parameters in place, but allowing the children to be a part of that process. So a second part would be, can predators be in my neighborhood, my school, my church? Here's a real story. And it's hard to share because I have to make myself vulnerable. I have a daughter that was 16, and she was raped by someone in our church. Had a 4-year-old son who was molested by someone in our church. So as a family, it never just affects your child. It affects the whole family. And we're talking of any experience like that. It can take years for a family to walk through that, to work through that. And so because of our experience, we want to help other families not have to experience what we did. And this is a way, we hope, that you can put a security measure in place. And we had a bunch of them. And that's why it hurts even more with the work that I do, that something like that could happen. Another is to what criminal activity exists in my city, my neighborhood, my community. Again, we're broadening the reality that we live in a dangerous world, and it's helping our children understand and see we live in a dangerous world, and we need to put things in place that can better protect us. And then last two, are there any registered sex offenders in my community? That's important information to know. If my next door neighbor is a registered sex offender, I want to know that. And then what apps do predators use? So these are just research topics. As a family, you would sit down, if you're a single parent with a child or children, same thing, you're going to come up with those research topics, and then you're going to sit down with your child or children and navigate them through that. Next slide. So this is the last slide, and then the very last slide will be a tool for everyone to maybe want to write down, but how to protect our children and teens, family accountability. We do want to monitor our children's online activity, and a part of our strategy, and this is that accountability element, is we don't allow the children to delete their web history. I want, as a parent, to be able to go through, and I'm not trying to impede on my child's privacy. This is one of those things, especially with teenagers, they want their privacy. Well, as adults, we want our privacy too. So their privacy isn't any more important or less important than the privacy that we want. However, and Dr. Jeff and I know with Gina and the Joy team, you have access to my computer, you have access to my phone, you can check whatever you need to do. Is that accountability measure in place so that we're not doing inappropriate things. And that's what we're trying to establish with our family. A part of checking the web history, we're wanting to make sure that predators are not gaining access to our children. That's the reason for that. Secondly, again, that family communication. We want to discuss what is allowed and what is not allowed on the phone, iPad, computer, social media. And we want to share that with extended family, especially if your children, if you're in a blended home, maybe a situation to where there's custody. You may have custody of your child for a week or two, and then the other parent has custody. So you want to make sure these bridges that you're establishing are respected, and that when our children are away from us, especially with other family and friends, there's a continuation of that communication. The things that we put in place, we want to make sure those security measures follow our children when we entrust our children into the hands of other people. And then lastly, develop a family strategy and immediately put that plan of action into place. We're not talking about it has to be anything extensive. It could be one point. It could be however large you want to make that plan and that strategy. The key is having a starting point to better safeguard and protect your children from these online predators. These are some tools that can help. Dr. Jeff mentioned earlier, Joy International does have an online safety tool. There are tools that exist. We use this with our children as well, tools to monitor their activity online. And we would get a text message if something inappropriate popped up, either someone was trying to connect with our child who had a malicious intent, or if a child is observing, looking at things they should not be looking at. If you do suspect a predator, two hotlines. Number one is a cyber tip line that can be contacted. it's a good website just to go ahead and take a look at as well, and some tools to navigate with that. And ultimately, if you suspect a predator of any nature, any suspicious activity, is to contact your local police or 911. So, Dr. Jeff, I'm open for any questions, anything else that you wanted to add.
Well, this was wonderful. Robert, what you put together is fantastic. And I just wanted to make sure that I let everybody know that this has been recorded. Gina, do you know where it would be available? Are we going to have it on the website or on the
Yep,
Joy
I
website?
think probably by next week we can have it on our website at joy.org/parents.
Okay, and we'll have some other tools available as well, so, like the video I showed in the beginning, as well as several others that I found. I didn't want to have one video after another during this presentation, as I wanted to make it available to Robert. And if you would send us your comments and suggestions on how this can be even better, we would be more than happy to do another one. There's so much information available and so much more. Literally, I could spend 7 hours doing a webinar on just this. Robert, I think you would agree with the amount of information that's available out there. We can do webinar after webinar. I could literally do a 7-hour seminar just on internet safety for you and your child. But if you would send us your suggestions, comments, we would really appreciate it. And it's real simple. You could just send it to, what would be the best email address? Would it be info@joy.org, Gina?
Yeah, that's great. Yep, that
Just
works.
send it to info, I-N-F-O, @joy.org. If you have any questions or comments, we would really appreciate it. So other than that, is there anything else?
Robert, we have a question from an attendee. Kristen is curious what kind of tactical modality you use in your trainings.
Which trainings?
She didn't specify, but I'm guessing either the police training or the girls' self-defense.
Yeah, so for our self-defense for teens and women, we always start first and foremost in depth with situational awareness, the aspects of situational awareness, being aware of your surroundings, your environment, the people around you, how to make threat recognitions based upon body language mechanics and so forth like that. So it's really helping participants be better engaged with their environment. If you can prevent, avoid, deter, or detect something before it happens, it's far better than having to fight your way out of a very bad situation. So we spend a lot of time training in, again, situational awareness and threat recognition. Then we move into some tactics, how to escape from forced restraint, zip ties, rope, duct tape, kidnapping situations like that. And then we also go into some hand combatives to create that space to get away from the attacker as quickly as possible to a safe location and to make the appropriate contact with law enforcement if you're able to. So again, that would be a very micro outline. The cool thing is we can adjust and adapt our training to fit the specific need for a women's or teens child self-defense program. For our police, that would be a different animal. And so basic defensive tactics for police, handcuffing, how to deal with combative subjects, and then we do specialized training for SWAT teams and task force and hostage rescue and things more of a specialized nature.
Okay.
Thanks.
What else? And Gina, you said that we are going to have this available, the recording, because a couple of people wrote to me and asked if the video that little short clip I showed in the beginning would be on there, I think would be really good to have.
Absolutely, we'll include that as well.
Okay. What else? Anything else? Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Some great comments from people about how wonderful this was. I thought it was too. Robert, you did a fantastic job as
Thank
I
you, guys.
expected you would. This was good. Look forward to receiving more of your comments. And other than that, everybody, wash your hands and stay safe.